So today we're going to clean one of the parts on the air intake that frequently needs to be cleaned. When I say frequently, I'm not talking about monthly or anything like that. Once a year is usually good. I do know there are some people that say you should clean this particular sensor every time you change your oil. I think that's a bit much, but you certainly want to clean it. And what we're talking about today is the mass airflow sensor, so the MAF. Now, a couple of cautions. Most mass airflow sensors have either a cold wire, a hot wire, or both. And those are perfectly fine to clean the way we're going to show you how to clean. There's two types you need to be very careful about because you can easily destroy those. So one of the types of sensors that you might have difficulty with, and you really shouldn't clean this way, is a hot film sensor. Those are found on some Volkswagens, a few other cars. Not real common, but if you have one and you try and clean it with this method, you're going to likely destroy it, and that's an expensive part. The other one is a Karman Vortex, Karman with a K. A Karman Vortex is found on some of the performance Toyotas, early versions. They're found on some Lexuses and some Mitsubishis. Again, that's not the only kind that they have on these cars. Many of them are the wire sensors like we're going to look at today. But you need to be careful because those can't be cleaned this method either. So today we're going to show you how to clean it. It's a fairly easy process. And the thing that makes it work is using the right chemicals. So on this 2001 Nissan Pathfinder 3.5 liter engine, this is where the mass flow sensor is. You'll find it on most of your vehicles just downstream from your air filter. So my air filter's here. This is the first sensor you come to, and this will be true on all vehicles. So we're going to take this one out, and we're going to clean this particular one. Now, today we're going to take it out by removing these two screws, removing the electrical harness, and then pulling it out. If you're going to do other activities on your airflow system, for example, if you're cleaning the throttle body as well, then you've got to remove all of this hose and tubing and ducting. So at that point, because you've got to remove everything, you might as well go ahead and clean this while it's in the housing. But if you're not cleaning the throttle body, which only needs to be cleaned occasionally, then it's easier just to pull the sensor out, and it makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker. The thing that makes cleaning the mass flow sensor easy is using the right chemicals, as I mentioned a little earlier. Today we're going to use the CRC mass MAF sensor cleaner. You'll notice it's specifically for cleaning the MAF. You want to use this and this only. Some people will tell you to use alcohol, some people will tell you to use WD-40. All those things are just going to crud it up, and you're going to have an expensive repair to make, or at least replacement to make. So be sure and use this. It leaves no residue, it evaporates very quickly, so you'll spray it down fairly vigorously with several good squirts to kind of loosen up any dirt or anything, and then you're going to let it sit for several minutes to make sure that it finished drying. But it does dry very, very quickly, and this is why you want to use it. No residue, quick drying, specifically for mass airflow sensor. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the harness clip. So it has a little squeeze tab back here to release it. Pop that off. Set it out of the way so you don't have it doesn't get pinched or anything while you're working on it. This particular model uses Torx screws. It's a T20. So we're just going to go ahead and take those out. Now when you pull this out, it'll have an O-ring underneath it, and so it may be a little bit difficult to get it going and to take it out, but if you just work it back and forth a little bit, you'll get it up enough to where you can probably get a little screwdriver or something underneath it to help finish pulling it out. This one I pulled out recently, so it's still okay. Once you get it out, please do not touch any of this area down here. You don't want to get your fingers on any of that. You want to be very careful not to touch that. There is a little O-ring here. If you want to make it a little easier to put that in, you can put just a little automotive oil on there. If you're someone who has a swimming pool and has some O-ring grease from swimming pools, those work very nicely as well. So now that we're out, we're going to clean it, and I'll show you how to do that. So again, being careful not to touch any of the areas down here and only holding it by the top side. So we're just going to spray it down real good with several good sprays. Be sure to catch all parts of it. Be sure you get down into the wire areas. Okay. Now you'll notice how quickly it's drying. You can see how it's drying very quickly. But you still want to give time for it to completely dry. So at this point, just set it aside and go take a quick break, go get yourself a drink of water or something, and give it about 5 minutes or so to make sure it's completely dry. All right, so now we're going to put it back in. We've given it enough time to where it's all evaporated. I can take a look at it and see that it's all evaporated. Again, do not touch anything down in this area at all. Keep your hands away from that. You'll also notice that on this particular one that the wings are offset, and so it's impossible to put it in and lock it down in the wrong orientation. Just if you need it to be aware, of course, you want the main sensor probe to be in the airflow. So the airflow is going this way, that's going to be impinging on that sensor first. So you want to, that's another way to make sure you get it in the right way. But they'll all have an orientation. So we're just going to drop it back in. Make sure we get it down nice. And seated with the O-ring nicely. Line up the screw holes. And then we'll just tighten it back down. Now, something I learned years and years ago in working with plastics, and it's not something you have to do, but it's just kind of one of those things that's nice, and that is that if you rotate the screw in the opposite direction, you'll feel it drop down into the threads, and that way you'll be sure that you're not cross-threading or double-threading your hole, and it'll go back in nice and easy. So it's just a little trick to keep from tearing up your plastic parts when you're threading. Again, just you can feel it, just kind of turn backwards until you feel a little pop into the into the threads, and then it'll go back down in nice and easy. So that way you're sure you're always getting your screws into the exact same threads when you're dealing with plastic parts. It's just kind of one of those nice things, because you hate to have to replace a part because your threads get all screwed up and you end up pulling the threads out and it not being able to tighten down. You want to just make it snug. So you'll notice that I'm only using a 1/4 inch drive ratchet on this. It doesn't take much. Don't put a lot of torque on this. You'll just strip out the threads. Just get it snug, and just a good little twist, and you're good to go. This isn't a stressed part. It's not going to fall apart. You're just keeping it in place. Now, on my preference is anytime that I remove a clip, electrical contactor clip off of any part on my car, I always want to clean the contacts. They have a special cleaner for that, QD electronic cleaner. It does a great job, and it makes sure that you get the maximum life out of those contacts and you don't have trouble later on where the contacts are getting dirty or crudted up. So this is my favorite to use on automobiles. So at this point you'll want to take and just spray in there. Again, it evaporates fairly quickly, but it leaves a conductive film on the electrical parts, and that's where it really shines. So just kind of get it sprayed in on both of them. Give it a few minutes to evaporate, although you don't have to wait too long. You're not waiting for it to completely evaporate like we did with the mass flow sensor cleaner. And then just go ahead and snap that back on. Make sure you got a good contact and it's on there good and tight. And you've now cleaned your mass airflow sensor, and you should be good to go.